Gorm completed the first part of his quest travelling from Belfast, South Africa, to Belfast, back to Northern Ireland in the spring, and he plans to visit all the Belfasts in North America, all 19 of them. And Sean Drysdale is a retired doctor. And let's see if we get Sean on the line here. Sean, can you hear?
I can, yes.
Good man, Sean. Sean, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us today. So, 24 Belfasts in the world. Tell me, what started all this?
Well, there's actually more than 24. There's 24 in North America and Canada. There's 3 in South Africa. There's one in Australia, one in New Zealand, and one in Jamaica.
And do you plan to get around them all?
So, well, that's the plan. Now, mind you, they're not all. Some of them appear to be just dots on the map. So, part of the trick is part of the plan is just to go and see what's there, how it got there, what's the story behind it, and just to sort of, to do that. So I might get there and find, when I ask people where Belfast is, they'll all look at me and say, "Where?"
Especially with your accent. You're lost.
But it's about the journey. It's about the journey.
And you're doing it on a motorbike from the 1970s.
Well, it started back in 1982 when I came across Belfast down in South Africa, and I was a lot younger then, and sort of thought to myself, one day I'm going to ride from Belfast to Belfast, and that was something I talked about for a number of years as time went on, but life sort of interfered with the best plans, and eventually I decided, I better do this soon or I'm not going to be in any fit state to do it. So just after retiring, I rebuilt my motorbike and rode from Belfast rode from Zimbabwe down to Belfast, and then from Belfast back up to Belfast.
Tell me, Sean, there must be a lot of logistics, accommodation and stuff like that. That must be an absolute nightmare for you to get. I mean, you're going to the States now, coming up, are you, to do all the ones in the States and Canada? Must be a lot of logistics there, a lot of organisation.
Well, I mean, the logistics hinge around transport and visas and stuff more than anything else. Experience has taught me not to plan in detail, because a plan never lasts longer than the next morning when you get up. You're on the road and something happens, and that's that plan gone by. So you just got to sort of work out bits and pieces about visas if you're talking about ferries. But the point about doing a trip like this without a set time frame is it doesn't really matter if you get stuck somewhere for a couple of days, or as in some cases coming up through Africa for a couple of weeks, because you don't really have a deadline. So it works. It works both ways. That sometimes you tend to just roll along and not actually get anywhere, and you suddenly realize, hey, I haven't moved in the last week. I better start making a bit of progress here. So you make it up as you go along, and you never know. I mean, to be honest, I'm more worried about going to the States than I was about riding up through whatever it was, 19 African countries, because I've not really been to the States before. So in Africa, I was always sure I could find somewhere to stay or, make a plan to do something. But America is going to be another story.
During your travels in Africa, was there a crisis point saying, well, I'm stuck here and the bike's not going, or I've run out of food, or I don't know where to stay? There's bound to be somewhere along the line that has happened.
Well, there were several hiccups when I had to get the bike put in the back of a truck, and once a truckers, some long distance truckers, took pity on me, and when I couldn't get the bike started after a bit of a spill, they picked the bike up, strapped it to the back of their truck, and took me down to the next town.
Very good.
But the only real problem I had was related to an electrical fault, and it was due to improperly connected wiring in a new part that I had fitted. But I found that, and then this electronic replacement part. The bike was basically original, apart from these two electronic parts that I had fitted. and transistor in one of them blew up when I was in northwest Sudan, and none of the little electronic shops in this town had the right. They could fix it, they told me, but they didn't have the right little part. So I had to sit there for 10 days, 11 days, waiting for the part to come from Germany.
And tell me, Sean, what about language? I'm just thinking, you mentioned Sudan there, and I'm thinking, what about language? Are you multilingual?
I wish. I'm not too bad at French. I can get by in French. I have about 2 or 3 words in German. Otherwise, it's English. But coming up east, that was one of the benefits of East Africa, coming up the east coast. That they're all ex-English colonies, so most of the way, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and even in Ethiopia, Sudan, then it started to get a bit difficult. But by and large, most people spoke English, or you could find someone who spoke English, or a little bit of English, enough to sort of point at something and say, "I need this," or point to a picture or something.
And tell me, what type of bike? You said 1970s bike. What is it? Kawasaki or Honda? What is it?
No, it's a Honda CB750.
Very good.
It's the old four-cylinder inline 750 that was first came out in 1969, and this model is 1972, and I've owned it since 1978.
Excellent.
So,
and tell me this, Sean, are you recording this for a book, or are you recording it film-wise to make I think it'd make a great movie, the adventures of...
Who would you get to play me?
Well, you're not unlike Phil Collins or Bruce Willis, from what I can see.
That's very flattering. Well, I kept a blog. I did a blog on the Africa trip, and I'm planning to do the same thing. And maybe somebody introduced me to Instagram not that long ago, so I'll maybe use Instagram and the blog. I mean, I had a blog on a website, Belfast to Belfast by bike, very original sort of title. And I obviously still have the posts that I made, although the site currently isn't up. I'm just working on renewing it now.
And have you come across on your travels? I'm sure you have, because I know from personal experience there's other places in the world called Strabane. There's other places called Derry. There's other places called Londonderry, apart from the obvious ones that we know. Have you come across any other familiar names? I know there's quite a lot of Londons all over the world as well. Have you come across any other familiar names?
Actually, back in 1982, when we came across the town called Belfast, we also came across a town called Drysdale.
The chances?
Not far away. It was like 10 or 20 kilometers away from Belfast.
Very good.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at the States, there's a lot of towns there called Dublin. And I believe I heard on the radio the other day that there's actually a place in the States called Londonderry.
Yeah. And
about 5 kilometers up the road, there's another place called Derry. Because they were all there together, and apparently they fell out. So they had one called London.
You're making that up. That would never happen. So what's next?
I mean, there's lots of them,
So what's next, Sean? So where are you speaking to me from at the moment? You're not in Belfast. Well, I hate to say you're not in Belfast at the moment.
No, I'm in France. I'm in a little village called Saint-Ferréol, which is in the Aude in southwest France.
Excellent. So what's the next? This is where are we today? We're on the 29th of January. So what's next for Sean Drysdale?
What's the plan? Well, I booked my flight last week. So 15th of April, I'm flying from Dublin over to Halifax, and hopefully my bike will be there to meet me. And we go from there and see what happens.
And what's the time scale? You're fairly open with schedules and stuff like that.
Well, the time scale is sort of set by the weather a bit, because, as you can imagine, Canada gets a bit cold in the winter, the other end of the trip is in Washington State, which is also that's in the northwest, so it gets a bit cold there as well in the winter. So somebody said to me, a guy who lives in Canada who I was online with, and he recommended end of April, even beginning of May to start. and I'm thinking about 6 months will take me then through to October, and I should get it done. I mean, it's not. It's what I'm going. This is going to sound a bit silly. It's not that far actually. It's only about 10,000 kilometers. So 6 months to cover 10,000 kilometers isn't too strenuous. So I sort of am planning on about 6 months, give or take, and we'll see how it goes.
I know this might sound silly, but you can go from Belfast to Belfast using the outer ring. Just around the Donald, you don't have to do what you're doing.
Which what would I do with the rest of the time?
Sean, I want to wish you all the very, very best, and thank you so much for taking the time out. I know the time difference.
Thanks, you're very welcome.
And I want to wish you a safe journey as well. There you go. That's Sean Drysdale there. He's travelling from Belfast to Belfast to Belfast to Belfast. And